All right, welcome everybody, and congratulations on making it halfway through day 2 of the JNUC. I kind of want to do this thing that I saw Chip do earlier. How many people are here for the very first year at the JNUC? That's awesome. Cool. Well, again, welcome. This session is From Great Walls to Firewalls, Securing Mac in the People's Republic of China. My name's Kyle Apple. I'm a member of the systems engineering team at Jamf Software. And one of the common themes that we've been seeing lately is a lot of organizations have a lot of Macs in the United States and are looking to expand that footprint globally into different countries. And there's a lot of challenges that go along with that. And what I really wanted to do is bring somebody in to talk a lot about those challenges and how they overcame them. And because of that, we brought in Alex McClements from CME Group, and I'll let him take it over from here.
Good afternoon. So my name is Alex McClements. I'm a senior desktop engineer with the CME Group in Belfast in Northern Ireland. I've been working there for about 2 years now in the desktop engineering team. Prior to that, I worked on Mac Windows integration for publishing firms, financial services firms, film production companies, and online poker firms. It's meant working with a lot of different tools, of which Jamf is the best one I've worked with. So do I get my hoodie now, Kyle, or is that later? Okay. So our topic for today, From Great Walls to Firewalls, Securing Mac in the People's Republic of China. Is anyone working for an organization with an active presence in mainland China or Hong Kong? Wow, that's a lot of people, cool. Is anyone here with the Ministry of State Security? If you were, would you tell me? You wouldn't be a very good spy if you were, or if you did. I'm going to use a few acronyms, so I'll just give you a quick guide to them. So, high-risk office location, HROL, it's pretty much defined as anywhere where you're going to have issues running encryption software. At least that's how we define it. So, the PRC, Russia, and strangely France as well has got some quite interesting laws when it comes to encryption. The People's Republic of China, the PRC, Hong Kong, HK, and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, the CFTC, who are the main regulatory body that the CME Group would deal with. And also Global Information Security, which is GIS or InfoSec, is, I'm sure you all have those kind of departments in your organizations. So CME is an American futures company and is one of the largest options and future exchanges. It owns and operates large derivatives and futures exchanges in Chicago and New York City, as well as online trading platforms. If anybody can tell me how options and derivatives work, that would be great, because I don't know. When you started CME, you watched about 15 hours of videos on what the company does. The only thing I can remember from that is that you should only 3/4 full fill tanks of paraffin oil whenever you move it, which is, it's useful stuff. So just a quick run through of our agenda. Background, so what our problem was, the issues that arose, the solution that we have implemented, and how we implemented it. So a bit of background. Global expansion at CME Group is still a relatively new thing. The office I work out of in Belfast is only about 2.5 years old. I think I was the 4th or 5th person that was hired for the office. But Asia is now our focus because the growth of the nouveau riche within China has been incredible, and they're all looking for ways of making more money, hiding money, one or the other. So there's cash to be made. Obviously, with global expansion comes new issues. The predominant one that we've come across is security. So we've actually experienced corporate espionage. We had an actual spy in our office who was providing information to the People's Republic of China. So as you can imagine, people in our security team get quite upset about this. The other concern is the CFTC, who constantly come up with new and interesting ways of torturing me personally, because it's like, take this away, do this, do that. So there's a lot of stuff to get through and deal with. So the perception that the CME Group had of China was not this. It was this. An army of pandas waging cyber warfare in return for bamboo treats, although perhaps a little too livelier than this chap. So to allay fears, we brought in some security consultants from, among others, the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, and the Boy Scouts of America. Well, maybe not those last guys. Now, do you think this helped matters? No, it made things infinitesimally worse. Their first comment was, why would you want to do business in the PRC? They went through the Ian Fleming handbook of devious spy tricks. They said we should burn equipment users took to the PRC. Senior management whipped up in such a fervor that some were rumored to have actually had their houses swept for bugs. Now, how much of it was fact and how much of it was retired spies trying to, earn some fat consultancy fees is hard to gauge, but it definitely made an impression on us, and we just set about reevaluating how we secured our equipment. Well, there we go. So these are the issues that we were facing. Sourcing equipment in Asia is incredibly difficult. We are actually running our purchasing team out of London, so you've got a time zone issue. The way things seem to work in Asia is that you make an order to one person, they then go to an intermediary, who then actually goes to the company that you're buying the equipment from. So trying to get feedback and updates is really pretty tricky. Another issue is we have a global SKU, so everybody in the world is supposed to have the same PC if they're a developer, or the same PC if they work in accounts. Now, this has proved very difficult in Asia, in that part numbers tend to differ, and it's quite hard to get consistent hardware. Another problem was permits. At present, all our equipment has to go through Singapore, because the only guy we have for IT support in Asia is in Singapore. So to send a laptop from Singapore to the PRC, you need a permit. To take that laptop into China, you need a permit. You're not technically supposed to send encrypted laptops into the PRC because they don't like that. It makes it harder, to spy on it. So you actually have to have a permit once the machine arrives to use encryption. You actually need a permit for anything with an encryption capability. So I think the last count of our image, there was 15 products that required a permit. So there's a lot of paperwork. I spent about 2 weeks with our company lawyer trying to figure out what all we needed to do. Obviously, data integrity, major issue, because if we were sending an unencrypted laptop into the PRC and they were that interested in us, they could actually intercept it, put on malware, spyware, whatever else. Because it's going to an office with a non-technical staff, it might be difficult for them to assess whether or not the equipment had been bugged or not. And support. We don't actually have boots in the ground in the PRC or Hong Kong. So we would be trying to get a non-technical user to actually install the rest of the software, which would have to be done over the wire, because if you do it from like a hard drive, you need yet another permit. So options. Source equipment in China. Well, we've had issues, as I mentioned, actually getting equipment. So didn't really think that would be a great idea. Image in China, again, with no technical resources. And we would be relying on an Aruba wrap device, which I'll come back to later, which would have to pull our 18 gigabyte image from a server in Singapore. It would take days. We also have no technical resource, as I keep saying. And our Novell build system can be a little bit tricky. And again, no support. So this got me thinking, what about Macs? Well, it has many benefits. So security. In general, Macs are a lot more secure than PC, although the shell shock issue might have dispelled that somewhat. I don't know if anybody else had this problem, but we use an application called Bit9 for whitelisting. And Bit9 are always like maybe 1 or 2 iterations behind the curve. So we were trying to put the shell shock patch onto our machines, but to do that, you had to have 10.9.5, at which stage Bit9 said, oh, well then we're not actually going to support you. So we were in this kind of like logical loop where our security software would be unavailable to us if we patched the devices the way Apple asked us to. Another great benefit is availability. There's a Mac store within walking distance of both our Beijing and Hong Kong offices. The Mac platform is globally consistent, so the laptop you purchase in Minneapolis is the same laptop that you buy in Beijing and Hong Kong. The one thing I would say is the price differential is quite dramatic. I think it's about 25% maybe. So it's a lot more expensive to buy the kit in China. Our global TAM with Apple was able to set us up with a contact in the Beijing Apple Store. So we just had to like phone him up. He organized the laptop for us, picked it up from the office. So no permits, importing, exporting, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, I already mentioned globally consistent specification. So Macs also have no TPM chip. For those of you who are not familiar with TPM chip, it's generally fitted into Windows laptops and is utilized by encryption services. So the PRC have some issues with this. One of the guys in our office kind of misunderstood what it was and was attempting to remove it from the motherboard of a laptop before somebody went, no, don't do that. So as Macs don't have one, that's another benefit. Initial setup, it's really easy to kind of just initially set up a Mac with a username and password. If the user couldn't do it themselves, they could just get a blue shirt from the Genius Bar to do it. So initial setup is a lot easier than our PC system. So Epic Rap Battle. When I first was looking into this, the only device that had network connectivity into our LAN was an Aruba RAP device. So it's essentially a thing that looks like a desktop modem. And generally, the only thing that's physically connected to it is a network printer. To actually be able to connect a laptop to it, we had to do a lot of work with our GIS guys before they allowed us to do it. So we had to get a number of ports opened. So Jamf recommend that you need 18 ports to connect to the Casper suite. We got that down to 10. We removed HTTP because we don't use that. We removed AFP because we don't use that either. We got rid of iCloud ports, all that kind of stuff. The problem was GIS didn't agree to a lot of them, so I had to like cut it way back and then it wouldn't work. So then I don't have to figure out what additional port I needed to get it to communicate to, say, our ID. Go through all the testing process, communicate to GIS that I needed it, then get them to approve it. So it was pretty time consuming. Once we got through that, we could then leverage our modular image. At CME, our Mac image is out of the box. So the essential idea is you take your laptop, bang, you connect it up, you go to the Jamf website, you download the quick add and you run it. The user is then prompted for the machine name, the host name, and also their username. So then the script, we have about 22 packages and 13 scripts as part of our image, which execute in the background. So once it's finished, in our kind of like Chicago office, it takes about 15 minutes or so. The user is connected to the ID. The machine's fully patched. It has all our security stuff on it, and they're pretty much good to go. So we did this over the RAP, which required a lot of patience. It took a long time, but we realized this was due to the Office package, which I think is about 600 meg. So it was taking a long time to pull it down. It executed correctly, but it was taking about like 4 or 5 hours. So we resolved to just remove that and just install that from a DVD in the Office because you don't actually need a permit for it, amusingly. So after all that, what do you think I discovered? Well, it had all been a gigantic waste of time. Once I had finished the testing, written up the proposal, submitted it, got it approved, the company announced that we were opening brand new offices in Beijing and Hong Kong with circuits into our LAN, so I could do whatever the hell I wanted from that point of view. So it was, if anybody has any need for this, I can provide you all the technical information. At least someone will get some use out of it. So, being secure. So, how do we go about securing our image? Well, first of all, admin rights. It's a pretty obvious thing whenever you think about it. Our users in Beijing are generally sales and marketing, so they don't need admin rights. Everything we are trying to do is, or we try to get them to do everything through self-service. If, however, you have developers, that's where it gets problematic. That's something I'm currently looking into. in the realms of reduced admin rights. If anybody has any suggestions for that, I would really like to hear them. Encryption, again, pretty obvious. We enforce encryption using a smart group and a policy. The group looks for machines with a particular name. So our base image, or the image looks for, like, Macintosh HD. Or, well, we give it a specific name. So the policy looks for that name and then kind of applies the encryption policy. I've got an image here? Oh, yeah, sorry. So as you can see in our configuration profile here, we've got require file vault 2, create individual recovery key rather than institutional, because if you have an institutional key, it gets compromised, then that's your entire network your entire user base wide open. The other thing is that I've implemented is require user to unlock file vault 2 after hibernation, just to make life a little bit more difficult for everyone involved. So, hardware password, again, it's a very useful thing. Prevents you from being able to put the machine into target mode or go into recovery console. Because obviously in recovery console, if you have a local user ID, that password can be changed, so that's compromised, or it can be easily enough compromised. Obviously, if the machine's encrypted, you're not really going to have that issue, but with the recovery console, you can unencrypt drives and whatnot. So I don't know how long that would actually take to do, but it's a consideration. Sorry, just 1 second. So this is a contradictory statement, but we want our users to install everything through self-service. The problem is the problem we find is that Jamf doesn't really have a whitelisting feature, except it kind of does. So what we do is we set Gatekeeper to only use the App Store, but we also block access to the App Store to prevent the user from accessing it. Another trick is you can actually point the App Store at like a dummy address. So we use like 127.0.0.1. So it just goes, cannot find the App Store. So the user can't install anything we don't wish them to. It's also important, if you look here, do not allow user to override Gatekeeper setting. Obviously, how to override Gatekeeper is like a Google search away. Although if you're in the PRC and you're Googling, override the Gatekeeper, it might get you some unwanted attention. Other thing there is require password after sleep or screensaver begins. It's kind of obvious. If you're going to get the user to lock their screen, whatever else, then it's a good idea to have a password for them to wake it up again. So, configuration profiles. So we leverage these pretty heavily. The first one here is passcode. Now, our Active Directory dictates how complicated our passwords are, how long until they expire, special characters, all that kind of stuff. What I utilized here was auto lock. So the machine locks after 5 minutes. So if somebody goes to the bathroom or goes to make a cup of tea and forgets to lock their machine, it's automatically done for them. Maximum number of failed attempts set to 5 before it erases. I would highly recommend advertising to your user base that you plan on doing this, because otherwise you get some pretty nasty phone calls with some fairly industrial language, which has maybe happened a few times to me. So login window, name and password text fields. The idea here being that you're not giving away a username or a password if someone wakes up a machine and sees Joe Blow or admin or whatnot. The login window, pretty obvious. Disable automatic login. Log out users after say 30 minutes of inactivity. Again, that's just to kind of give one more level of security. Does anybody actually know what enable external accounts is? Sorry? Yeah. I wasn't sure what this was. I was just looking at it going. Okay, so definitely untick that box. Mobility. If the machines are desk-bound and you don't want them to go anywhere, why have a mobility account? If you just want people to log in at their desk, then no mobile accounts required. So it's just so someone like wanders off the machine and tries and log into it. So printing, oldest trick in the book, after just copying things down on a piece of paper, just printing that stuff out. So what I want to do is like prevent users from connecting up USB printers at home and printing off stuff. I just want them to install printers through self-service and only use the printers in our office as opposed to printers offsite, whatever else. We're currently implementing a system called Equitrack, which is like a card-based solution. So you send your print to the printer, you go press your card, and voila, it spits out your prints. So the GIS guys are very interested in this feature at the minute of JAMP. Parental controls, this is based on the idea that if certain users in your office, maybe like your receptionist, whatever else, is only going to be in the office from, say, 8 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon. So why would they need to log in at any other time of the day? So you can leverage this feature here to prevent login between certain times of the day and night. Security and privacy. So again, require password after sleep or screensaver begins, which I've already mentioned, so I really should get rid of that slide. Energy saver. If your user is set up so they have to put a password in to wake up the machine or get out a screensaver or whatever else. If you allow them to access the energy saving features, they can then stretch that out to whatever they want. So they can not have to type their password in as much. That's not a good idea if you're trying to prevent people from snooping on people's machines if they forget to lock them. This is the preference panes in system administration. So what we've done here is we've only allowed access to certain things. So a user doesn't need access to the users and groups. They don't need accessibility is one of those things that can actually be leveraged for kind of infiltration we discovered recently. Energy saver, so they can't change the amount of time before the screensaver comes on. Security and privacy, so they can't get in and mess around with the encryption, things like that. So this is actually really useful. I'm sure some of you guys actually already implement it. So it just basically shows up as being grayed out, which drives our users absolutely insane, but there you go. Restrictions here. Sharing services, it's pretty obvious. If you don't want people to disseminate information, you got to prevent them from being able to do it. So Twitter, Facebook, all these kind of things are blocked. AirDrop is blocked. I was working for a company a few years ago, and the information security guy made us block Facebook and all these other things. And I know people can still access Gmail, so they can email their stuff out. And he goes, "That's not a problem. We can check that." And he was right. They could check it, but it was only after the guy had emailed out a couple of thousand pages worth of confidential information. So you just have to take a very, overarching view of it all to make sure you haven't missed one tiny detail. So restrictions, require admin password to install or update apps. Pretty obvious if you don't want users updating apps or installing anything you don't want to, such as patches that might compromise the overall security of your OS. Restrictions, we don't actually allow users access to any form of external disk or disk image, so everything is generally a PKG file, so they don't actually have to mount a DMG file, which can cause a few issues, but unfortunately that's the name of the game. So manage preferences, again, I've leveraged these a little bit for things like secure empty trash. So if a user is emptying their bin, it does take a long time, but it's securely erasing the data. Preventing guest access. It's not really any good if you have all these clever security features and then you have a guest access thing people can just go click on. You can also kind of prevent Wi-Fi connections and things like that with managed preferences, which if you're having I don't know, say 20 iMacs in an office, you don't want them being used in any other wireless networks. That makes sense, obviously, from a laptop point of view. It's not so good. So conclusions. Mac is easy. It's globally consistent. It's easy to get hold of. You have on-the-ground support. It's easy to configure. And with Jamf, you can do the rest. Essentially what we do is, once the user's got through the setup process, we just bounce onto the machine and then run everything automatically from in the background, remotely from Belfast or Chicago, whatever. Keep it consistent. If you are forcing the user to enter a password to get past the screensaver, make sure the screensaver comes on. Configuration profiles are your friend. It is incredible the amount of stuff you can do with configuration profiles. It's really been quite an eye-opening experience using Jamf because it's so much easier than, say, like Centrify or Quest or those other tools that allegedly allow you to implement group policy on machines. And Panda's no IT. They are out there, people, and they are watching you. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. I think we're going to take a little bit of time for some Q&A. So if you have a question, just raise your hand. I'm going to try to run to you so we can get the question recorded. So go ahead and raise your hands if you have anything, and I'll scamper over. There you go.
Hi. You said you were using the parental controls to restrict the log-on hours.
Yeah.
Was there a reason for using that? You're using Active Directory for the machines. Would you not want to use the log-on hours there?
Oh, you could. That's very true. I just don't have access to your Active Directory that much, so I just did it this way.
Okay.
You can do it both ways. I'm sure if I went and got someone clever who knew all about AD to do it, that wouldn't be a problem.
Okay, so you don't have the access to someone else handling AD?
No, I can. They're very secure, so I can delete machines from AD, and that's it.
Right.
So,
okay.
You got another?
No.
Oh, right on. Here we go.
Great presentation, Alex. Thanks for that.
No worries.
Given your global reach, have you any experience in the Middle East and of similar security restrictions in and around that area?
Not a great deal. I did briefly work on a project to secure Windows machines in the Middle East many, many years ago, but that was all kind of group policy fun with Active Directory. So with Macs, not so much. I do believe there are some quite interesting regulatory issues in the Middle East.
Yeah, I've just opened offices over there, and we're having fun.
I can only
good to
imagine.
swap notes.
Yeah, I actually have a friend who might be able to help you out, so if I get your name afterwards, I can put you in touch with him.
We'll have a pint.
No worries.
All right, I'm going to be selfish. I have one here. So you mentioned that you don't really have a technical help desk over in People's Republic of China. Do you do anything to help your users solve their own problems, or is it just nuke and pave if you have an issue, or what's that like?
We have like a global help desk with a representative in Singapore who does phone support, but that's pretty much all the recourse people have. I'm currently looking into getting an agency in Hong Kong and Beijing to handle our IT support there, but again, that's riddled with security issues because we have to like vet each one of the technicians that the company might actually send into the office. So at present, they basically store up all the problems for like a couple of weeks, and then a guy flies from Singapore to Hong Kong or Beijing to actually fix them all, which obviously isn't a very efficient use of time and energy.
Cool, thank you. Oh, right behind.
So how do you deal with infrastructure? You've got an office in the country with links back to your WAN and your LAN, but do you have anything in country regarding like distribution points, imaging servers, netboot servers, software update servers?
We have a couple of appliances in a hub, which I can't really discuss, but we have like a distribution point in Singapore, which pulls it across. So we do have some like network infrastructure in China, or sorry, in Beijing and in Hong Kong, but predominantly everything is done from Singapore. We also do like VDI stuff as well, so that's kind of how we're getting around things at the minute with regards to providing services. Yeah, It's all very secret squirrel at the minute, so I'm not really allowed to talk too much about that side of things.
Can you say if that's somewhat intentional, keeping things out of the PRC?
Yeah, pretty much. Again, we don't have resources on the ground. Like we have a similar story inside Japan. Like we've got infrastructure equipment in Japan, which relays information between Chicago and Singapore. But we don't have anybody there. We've got like 2 guys in a sales office who look very good in suits but don't know anything about computers, because I've been on the phone with them several times trying to explain like the on-off switch, you know. So we have remote hands, you know, the guys that kind of go in and do that kind of stuff. And it's, again, this morning it was just rolled into the other project for finding support for Beijing and Hong Kong. I now have to add Tokyo and Seoul to that as well. So it keeps kind of growing.
All right, I have to run across the room, so I'm doing another one of mine. You said that Mac support is easy. Can you talk a little bit about your Windows teams and how much success they've had in China?
Our Windows teams, well, I kind of like cross those 2 areas. Like I work in Windows and I work in Mac as well. But our Windows support in the PRC, it's problematic because if something goes badly wrong with a PC laptop, we can't actually get into it, support it through remote desktop. Whereas with Macs, we generally just RDP on and fix it. So at the minute, laptops that are completely, toast have to be sent from, well, actually, sometimes you just bin it and buy a new one and send it over, or sometimes it actually gets couriered, or someone carries it from Beijing to Singapore, fixes it, and then it goes back again. So it's not very efficient at the minute. We're scaling our operation, so at the minute I think there's like maybe 8 guys in Hong Kong. So as it progressively gets bigger and bigger and bigger, we'd probably have to look at a more permanent kind of support solution.
I was just wondering if encryption is really important. Do you do anything like destroy the file vault 2 key on standby? Because if you wake up the machine and it's already decrypted, you can extract the data from it if you have physical access.
Sorry, can you say it again?
So file vault 2, is encryption like really important in the environment?
Yes.
So it's unlocked if the computer is left on. Like if you just wake up a laptop, you're at the login prompt.
Yeah.
And there's like special options to destroy the file vault 2 key, like on standby, so they have to do it every time they wake up the machine. Something that's probably good if you like the encryption.
I will make a note of that one.
Yeah, and also at one of the last JNUC sessions, I think they had a temporary admin thing, where like a user would go to a website and like kind of ask for temporary admin just for like a certain purpose. So for the developers and stuff, might help.
Cool, thank you for that.
You mentioned that you've been able to feature to relock. Sorry, just along those lines, didn't you mention that you enabled the option to relock the volume during the screensaver, or when this machine went to sleep?
Hibernate, so if you close the lid of your laptop, you have to like wake it up. You have to go through the file vault. Okay, cool.
I had another question about File Vault. So you're checking the box, obviously, that says File Vault's enabled or require File Vault, but it doesn't encrypt until the user actually enters their password and hits OK on a logout.
Well, generally we build the machines ourselves. So whenever the machine logs out, we put in the password, bang.
So you're doing it for the end user?
Oh, yeah.
OK.
Sorry, I didn't explain that very well. Basically, what we do is we RDP onto the machine and kick off the build process, and then kind of do all that kind of set of things. Our user base, obviously you can fully automate it, and that's something we're going to look into. I think it was one of the sessions the other morning where they're talking about fully automating their build process using not the volume purchasing scheme, but the other one, pre-registration. So that's something that we're very interested in doing for remote locations. Our entire Mac philosophy was actually built around the idea of self-service. So when users got a Mac, it was under the proviso that they would actually support themselves, so they weren't to contact the help desk. So our whole idea with self-service is to make it entirely user-focused. So the ultimate aim is for the user to take the machine out of the box, go to your website, click, bang, everything else is done for them without any kind of input from ourselves.
So we're doing end user thin provisioning, and the reason I was asking is because we haven't found a good way to ensure beyond a shadow of a doubt that the user does enter their password and clicks OK, because they can just click cancel and keep going.
Yeah, that's very true.
So that's what yeah.
We've had a few weird ones where Firewall 2's mysteriously disappeared off a user's machine, no matter what we've done. So yeah, I don't trust our users. Sorry, but you know.
Yeah, just to add on that, I think one thing that we have seen is using smart groups to make sure that machine is compliant, which maybe Firewall 2 is a part of being compliant, before you get access to some sort of resources. So not perfect, but definitely helps.
I'm just curious if you use any tools to determine what information is being involuntarily shared.
We are currently playing about with data loss prevention clients. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. If anybody knows of a good one for Mac, I'd really love to hear about it. Sorry?
That was my question.
Symantec have a data loss prevention client. Now, it doesn't actually prevent data loss, but it will tell you if something's happened. Also, we utilize Bit9 a little bit to do that as well, but that's more on the software side of things.
So I'll see you in Boston next week.
No, I only get one conference a year, and I'm here. So, but yeah, Bit9's been an interesting experience because they are, as I said earlier, behind the curve a lot of the time. So whenever an OS update comes out, we have to wait, like usually nearly a month, 6 weeks. I don't know if you've had this experience before you can actually.
Especially on Macs.
Yeah. Roll out the next patch.
Yeah. We found Bit9 keeps pretty steady on the curve with Windows, but we're still waiting on a good 10.9 client.
Yeah, Bit9, we pocked it, and it worked okay. We didn't have any major problems with it, but then whenever we got the live client, there was a bunch of different bits and pieces in it that caused all kinds of problems. So it's been a bit of a struggle. It's now on a pretty even keel, and it does do what we want it to do. Predominantly, we use it to spot if users are using software that's unapproved or unlicensed. But I believe they're getting it to a point now where it'll actually do a lot more from the security feature side of things. So that's it and endpoint protection are kind of like a big part of our kind of overall security strategy.
All right, 1 second.
Sorry.
So to prevent user to disable firewall, don't forget that you have the key FD, don't allow FD disabled that you can enforce so that user is not able to click on the disable file vault system preference pane. But my question is more about how do you deal with user exceptions when, as the other guy said, if I need admin rights or if I need to work at midnight and you enforce the parental controls, don't you get a lot of internal tickets?
Yes and no. We have a bunch of like exclusions, so that's one group or a series of policies. So if a user needs to work on a weekend, we just add an exception for it. So there is a process where their manager has to sign off on it, that kind of things. Obviously, there is a lot of manual input recorded with this. So there's a lot of, like, as you said, tickets. So it's quite frustrating. But, you know, security stuff isn't about it being easy. You know, it's about it being effective. I read that in a magazine one time. So, so yeah.
Anybody else? Oh.
This is more just a quick statement. The previous topic, data loss, I use a product called Endpoint Protector for Mac that I've used in a few places. It takes copying files around that kind of protection a lot further.
Okay, cool.
So I can stop people from, if they've used Dropbox, I can stop them taking things out of Dropbox. I can stop them emailing, I can stop them using, and you can look for certain types of files. You know, it's quite a cool product. So just thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah, we've been using Bit9, the spot, if users have been using Dropbox, and then I recently did a policy with Jamf, which if the user tries to install it, it won't let it. If it tries to run it, it flashes up and says, you're not supposed to use this, and then deletes it, unless I've got an exception from a manager. So yeah, I've been trying to leverage Jamf and Bit9 to kind of do what you've just described with that client. So that'd be interesting. Out of the box? Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, cool, yeah. I'll have a look at that one.
All right, I got another one. What's your plan to support Yosemite, and have you thought about how you're going to get that upgrade out there?
Yosemite, we have a plan in place. Unfortunately, again, Bit9's dictating that we can't do it at the minute because they're not going to have their client ready for a while. With Yosemite, I assume we'll just do what we did with Mavericks, which is we cached the installer file on the user's machine, and once it was cached, a policy was pushed to the user's self-service saying, hey, Mavericks is here, please install whenever you have time to do it. We generally, if we're pushing out like an update or anything else important, we'll give like a grace period of like 2 weeks, whatever, and say, right, you have to install this, and then it just goes, right, time's up, bang, it's installed. People invariably will complain about that, but it wasn't as if we didn't give them fair warning.
Cool, thanks. Any others? No? All right. I think that's all we got. So Thank you everybody for attending, and again, thank you, Alex.